When my best friend and business partner told me she needed an emergency loan from our company account, I never hesitated to sign. Days later, I was standing in an empty office with nothing but eviction notices while she posted pictures from her new yacht in the Bahamas. That's when I realized trust is like a diamond, priceless until someone decides to sell it off behind your back. If you're watching this, hit subscribe and drop a comment telling me about a time someone betrayed your trust. Because believe me, this story is about to twist harder than a jewelry wire in the hands of a master craftsman. My name is Alexandra Sinclair, and for 15 years, Sinclair Jewels was my life. My father had built the business from nothing, starting with a small repair shop before expanding into custom designs that eventually caught the attention of local celebrities. When he handed me the keys on my 30th birthday, I promised him I'd take our family legacy to new heights. And I did. For 7 years, I grew that business until we had 3 locations across the city and a reputation for creating the most exquisite custom engagement rings money could buy. Our waiting list stretched 6 months long, and I loved every minute of it. That's when I met Emma Blackwell. She came into my flagship store one rainy Tuesday afternoon, soaking wet, but somehow still elegant in her tailored suit. She wasn't there to buy jewelry. She was there to sell me on herself. "Your books are a disaster," she told me bluntly, sliding a business card across the counter. "I'm an accountant specializing in luxury retail. Let me fix your back-end operations, and I guarantee I'll double your profit margin within a year." Her confidence was magnetic. I hired her on the spot, ignoring the way my store manager raised her eyebrows behind Emma's back. It was the beginning of what I thought was the perfect partnership. Emma streamlined our operations, modernized our inventory system, and yes, doubled our profits just as she promised. What I didn't know was that she was playing a much longer game, one that would cost me everything I had worked for. Script part separator ===. 3 years into our partnership, Emma had become more than my accountant. She was my right hand, my confidant, the person I called first with every crisis or celebration. When she suggested we formalize our partnership, making her co-owner of Sinclair Jewels with a 40% stake, it seemed like the natural next step. My lawyer advised against moving so quickly, but I dismissed his concerns. Emma had earned my trust completely. To the future of Sinclair and Blackwell Jewels, she toasted the night we signed the paperwork, crystal champagne flutes clinking in my office overlooking the city. "I'm keeping the Sinclair name," I laughed. "It's my heritage." Emma's smile tightened just slightly. "Of course. Family tradition is important." If I'd paid attention to that moment, that flash of something cold behind her eyes, maybe I would have seen what was coming. The first sign something was wrong came on a Monday morning when our supplier called. "Miss Sinclair, I hate to be pushy about payment, but it's been 60 days now." "What payment?" "We always pay on delivery," I said, confused. "For the salon sapphires. The invoice your partner approved." I had never seen any sapphires. When I checked our inventory records, there was no trace of a major sapphire purchase. But our account showed a wire transfer of $87,000 to our regular supplier. That afternoon, I discovered 3 more mysterious transfers totaling nearly $300,000 over the past month. When I called Emma's cell, it went straight to voicemail. "She called in sick this morning," my assistant told me. Something about food poisoning. I drove to Emma's apartment immediately, heart pounding, still hoping for an explanation that wouldn't destroy everything I believed about her. The doorman confirmed what part of me already knew. "Ms. Blackwell moved out last weekend," he said. "Had everything packed into a moving truck. Said she was relocating for work." Script part separator ===. I rushed back to the office and tore through every file, every document I could find. The more I searched, the worse it got. Emma hadn't just taken money from our business accounts. She'd systematically emptied them over months. Wire transfers, cash withdrawals, supplier payments for merchandise that never arrived. Even worse, she'd opened credit lines in the company's name that I'd never authorized. My hands shook as I called our bank. "I need to freeze all Sinclair Jewels accounts immediately," I told the manager. "I'm sorry, Miss Sinclair, but we already have a freeze request," he replied. "From who?" I demanded. From Emma Blackwell. As co-owner, she reported potential fraud activity yesterday. We need both signatures to release any funds. The room spun around me. She'd locked me out of my own accounts. My life's work, my family's legacy, was in financial freefall, and I couldn't even access what little might be left. That night, as I sat surrounded by paperwork in my darkened office, my phone pinged with a notification. Emma had posted on Instagram. The image showed her lounging on the deck of a yacht, champagne glass in hand, the crystal blue waters of the Bahamas stretching behind her. New beginnings, read the caption. #blessed, #entrepreneur life. I threw my phone across the room so hard the screen shattered. The next morning, my bank called. The news was even worse than I'd imagined. Not only had Emma drained our business accounts of nearly $2.3 million, but she'd also taken out loans using the business as collateral. My flagship store, the building my father had purchased 30 years ago, was leveraged to the hilt. I had 5 employees waiting outside, confused about why the doors were still locked at opening time. I had a reputation built over decades. And now I had nothing but debt. That's when the eviction notice came, the first of many. Apparently, Emma had stopped paying rent on our other 2 locations months ago, pocketing the money I'd transferred for expenses. I called my father, the words catching in my throat. Dad, I've lost everything. Script part separator ===. His silence on the other end of the line was almost unbearable. How could you let this happen, Alexandra? He finally said, his voice thick with disappointment. I built that business for you, for our family name. Dad, No excuses. Get a lawyer. Fix this. He hung up. I collapsed into my office chair, tears streaming down my face. I'd not only lost my business, but my father's respect as well. I called 3 lawyers that day, each one grimmer than the last about my prospects. The partnership agreement Emma had drafted, the one I'd signed without enough scrutiny, gave her extraordinary powers. The 4th lawyer I called, Michael Hargrove, was different. This is textbook embezzlement and fraud, he said, reviewing my documents. But we need to move fast. Every day that passes, she's covering her tracks. What about my employees? My customers with deposits? I asked. First things first. We freeze her assets before she can move them offshore. Then we go after her hard. Michael filed emergency injunctions that afternoon. By evening, we had court orders freezing Emma's personal accounts. But the damage was extensive. Our preliminary accounting showed she'd been siphoning money for at least 14 months. How did I not see this? I whispered, staring at the spreadsheets. Con artists are professional liars, Michael said. And from what I can tell, Emma Blackwell is one of the best. That night, I couldn't sleep. I scrolled through photos of Emma and me, at industry events, celebrating store anniversaries, even at my parents' anniversary party. In every picture, she was smiling that same confident smile, already planning my downfall. My phone rang at 3:17 a.m. Unknown number. Hello? I answered, voice groggy. You should have read the fine print, Alex. Emma's voice, cool and collected. I sat bolt upright. Where are you? Do you have any idea what you've done? She laughed, the sound like glass breaking. What I've done is secure my future. What you've done is trust the wrong person. A costly mistake. I will find you, I said, my voice shaking with rage. I will take back everything you stole. Good luck with that. By the way, have you checked your personal accounts yet? My blood ran cold. I grabbed my laptop, logged into my bank. 0. My savings. My retirement fund. Everything gone. You gave me power of attorney last year, remember? Emma's voice was almost sing-song. For that emergency when you were in the hospital? You never revoked it. The phone slipped from my hand as I realized the true scope of her betrayal. Script part separator ===. I scrambled to pick up my phone, but Emma had already hung up. My hands trembled so violently I could barely hold my laptop. She'd taken everything, not just the business, but my personal savings, my retirement, even the fund I'd set aside for my niece's college education. I called Michael immediately, not caring that it was almost 4 a.m. She just called me, I said, my voice breaking. She's accessing my personal accounts too. She had my power of attorney from when I had that emergency appendectomy last year. This changes things, Michael said, suddenly sounding much more awake. Record any future communications from her. We need evidence. The next day passed in a blur of police reports and emergency court filings. Michael managed to get an expanded injunction covering my personal accounts, but it was too late for most of the money. The detective assigned to my case was blunt. Miss Sinclair, I'll be honest with you. These cases are notoriously difficult to prosecute. International wire transfers, offshore accounts. It's a jurisdictional nightmare. I refuse to accept that. She can't just steal millions of dollars and get away with it. We'll do everything we can, he promised, but his eyes told a different story. That evening, I returned to my condo to find a notice taped to my door. My mortgage payment had bounced. I had 30 days to cure the default or face foreclosure proceedings. I sank to the floor in my entryway, utterly defeated. How had everything fallen apart so quickly? Just 1 week ago, I was running a successful business, respected in the community, financially secure. Now I was potentially homeless, my business in ruins, my reputation about to be shredded when vendors and customers realized they wouldn't be paid. My phone pinged with another Instagram notification from Emma. This time, she was shopping in some exclusive boutique, diamond bracelets spread across her wrists. Living my best life. Hashtag diamonds don't lie, hashtag second act. Something inside me hardened. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about justice. About not letting her destroy everything my family had built. I texted Michael, whatever it takes. I want her to pay for this. His response came quickly. Meeting tomorrow, 8 a.m. I have an idea. Script part separator . When I arrived at Michael's office the next morning, he wasn't alone. A stern-looking woman in a crisp pantsuit stood as I entered. Alexandra, this is Diane Reeves, private investigator, Michael said. She specializes in financial fraud cases. I've reviewed what you have so far, Diane said, not bothering with pleasantries. Emma Blackwell isn't her real name. The floor seemed to shift beneath me. What? Diane slid a folder across the table. Inside were photos of Emma, except she had different hair, different clothes, standing next to different people. The captions identified her as Emily Barrett, Ellen Blackstone, and Eliza Barnett. She's hit at least 3 other businesses in the past decade, Diane explained. Same pattern, gets hired in finance, works her way up, gains trust, then cleans them out. She's good at disappearing afterward. Why hasn't she been caught? I demanded. Because her victims were too embarrassed to pursue her or settled privately, Michael replied. But you're different, Alexandra. You're fighting back. And we have something the others didn't, Diane added. She made a mistake contacting you. She's getting cocky. Michael leaned forward. We need to draw her out. Make her think you're more desperate than you actually are. That won't be hard, I said bitterly. Post on social media about selling personal items. Make it look like you're falling apart, Diane instructed. Meanwhile, I'll track her previous victims. If we can establish a pattern of fraud, we can build a RICO case. What's RICO? I asked. Racketeering, Michael explained. Much heavier penalties. But we need proof she's working with others. I think she is, I said suddenly. There's a jeweler in Miami, Ramirez, who always seemed too friendly with her. And my bank manager, Thompson, approved unusual transactions without contacting me. Diane's eyes narrowed. That gives us somewhere to start. But Alexandra, this gets dangerous now. These people have millions of your dollars. They won't give it up easily. I don't care, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. I want my life back. Script part separator . That night, I did exactly as Diane suggested. I posted a tearful selfie on Instagram with a caption, selling my grandmother's pearls to make rent. Never thought it would come to this. Hashtag rock bottom, hashtag betrayed. The responses flooded in immediately, concerned friends, confused clients, even my high school English teacher offering support. Emma took the bait within hours. A text from another unknown number. Those pearls should fetch at least $5,000. Not nearly enough to save your business, though. Might want to try selling that Cartier watch your father gave you, too. My hands shook with rage, but I remembered Michael's instructions. I hit record on my phone before calling the number back. You're enjoying this, aren't you? I asked when she answered. More than you can imagine, Emma purred. You were always so smug, Alexandra. My family legacy. My father's reputation. As if you earned any of it. I trusted you, I said, fighting to keep my voice level while the recording ran. And that was your first mistake. Your second was thinking you were smarter than me. What did I ever do to deserve this? I demanded. She laughed coldly. It's not personal, Alex. It's just business. Gregory said you'd be an easy mark, and he was right. I froze. Gregory? Gregory Thompson from First National? Oops, she said, not sounding sorry at all. Did I let that slip? Your trusted bank manager has been quite helpful. How do you think I got those loan approvals so quickly? My mind raced. This was the connection Diane needed. Proof of conspiracy. Who else? I pressed. Ramirez in Miami? Careful, Alex. Her voice turned icy. You're asking questions you don't want the answers to. People much more dangerous than me are involved. Are you threatening me? Consider it friendly advice. Take the loss. Move on. Because if you keep pushing, what happened to James Fulton might happen to you. The line went dead. My blood ran cold. James Fulton, the jewelry designer who had mysteriously relocated to Europe last year after a dispute with his business partners. No one had heard from him since. I immediately sent the recording to Michael and Diane, adding, Who is James Fulton and what happened to him? Diane called back within minutes. Don't stay at your condo tonight, she said without preamble. Pack a bag. I'm sending someone to get you. What's going on? Fulton was investigating insurance fraud in the jewelry industry before he disappeared. His car was found abandoned at Miami International. The case is still open. My stomach dropped. She's not just a con artist, is she? No, Diane said grimly. She's connected to something much bigger. And now they know you're onto them. Script part separator ===. I grabbed my passport, some clothes, and my mother's locket, one of the few pieces of jewelry I hadn't stored in the company safe. 20 minutes later, a stern-faced man named Ray was driving me to a hotel in a neighboring county. The safe house is a Hampton Inn? I asked, trying for humor despite my racing heart. Ray didn't smile. Best hiding spot is in plain sight. Use cash only. Register under the name we provided. No social media, no calls except on this burner phone. The next 3 days were a blur of fear and planning. Diane confirmed that Gregory Thompson had abruptly resigned from the bank and emptied his own accounts. Meanwhile, Michael was building our case, connecting with Emma's previous victims. One of them, a boutique owner from Seattle named Marissa, agreed to meet me at the hotel. I lost everything, she told me, her hands clasping a coffee mug like it might float away. My store, my home, my marriage, it all fell apart after Emma, whatever her name is, finished with me. How did you find her? I asked. I didn't. Your investigator did. I was too ashamed to pursue it. She broke me. I reached across the table, covering her trembling hands with mine. Help me stop her from doing this to anyone else. Marissa took a deep breath. What do you need? The breakthrough came on day 4. Diane burst into my hotel room, waving a flash drive. We've got her. The Bahamas photos helped us track her. She's back in the country, Miami. And she's meeting with Ramirez tomorrow. Are they watching me? I asked, paranoid after days of hiding. No, Diane smiled grimly. They think you've given up. Your social media posts about selling jewelry and applying for retail jobs convince them. Script part separator ===. What's the plan? I asked, feeling a surge of hope for the first time in weeks. Diane laid out surveillance photos on the bed. We've connected Thompson, Ramirez, and Emma to a larger network. They're running a sophisticated operation, money laundering through jewelry businesses, insurance fraud with fake robberies, identity theft. Your business was just their latest front. And now we catch them, Michael added, joining us via speakerphone. We have a court date next week for the emergency injunction hearing. But we need concrete evidence linking all of them together. How do we get that? I asked. You're going to wear a wire, Diane said bluntly. My stomach dropped. You want me to confront her? After she basically threatened to have me killed? Not exactly, Michael interjected. We want you to confront Ramirez. He's the weak link. Emma trusts him completely, but our background check shows he's already on probation for a previous fraud conviction. He'll flip to save himself. The plan was dangerous but simple. I would visit Ramirez's Miami showroom, posing as a desperate business owner looking to liquidate inventory quickly. Once inside, I would confront him about Emma, recording everything. 2 days later, I found myself in the back office of Ramirez Fine Jewelry, heart pounding so loudly, I was sure the microphone taped to my chest would pick it up. These pieces are excellent quality, Ramirez said, examining the small collection of rings I'd brought, the only inventory I'd managed to salvage before the stores were locked. But I can only offer wholesale prices. That's fine, I said, watching his face carefully. My business partner left me in a difficult position. His expression didn't change. Business troubles? That's unfortunate. Yes, I said, leaning forward. My partner, Emma Blackwell, cleaned out our accounts and disappeared. Perhaps you've heard from her? Ramirez's fingers froze on the diamond he was examining. I think you are confused, Senora. I don't know this person. That's strange, I said, sliding my phone across the desk with a photo of Emma and Ramirez at an industry event last year. Because you seem quite friendly here. His face hardened. I think you should leave. Not until you tell me where she is, Mr. Ramirez. Or should I tell the police about the $300,000 wire transfer from my business account to yours 3 weeks ago? For gems that never existed? Script part separator ===. Ramirez's eyes darted toward the door. Then, with surprising speed for his size, he lunged. Script part separator ===. Ramirez's eyes darted toward the door. Then, with surprising speed for his size, he lunged across the desk and grabbed my wrist. If you went to the police, you wouldn't be here alone, he hissed. Who else knows you're here? My heart hammered against my ribs, but I maintained eye contact. Everyone knows. My lawyer, the FBI, the detective handling my case. If I don't check in within the hour, they'll come looking. It was a bluff. Diane and her associate were parked outside, but the FBI wasn't involved yet. Ramirez's grip loosened slightly. I didn't steal your money, he muttered. I'm just a middleman. For a major fraud operation, I finished for him. Money laundering, fake insurance claims. How many other businesses have you and Emma destroyed? He released my wrist, sinking back into his chair with a defeated sigh. She's not who you think she is, he said finally. She works for someone much bigger. We all do. Who? I demanded. Ramirez shook his head. I can't. They'll kill me. They'll send you to prison anyway once I turn over this recording, I said, tapping my chest where the wire was hidden. Unless you help me now. His eyes widened in panic, then narrowed in calculation. What do you want? Everything, I said. Names, dates, accounts. And I want to know where my money went. Script part separator ===. For the next 30 minutes, Ramirez spilled everything. Names, dates, bank accounts, a complex web of fraud stretching across 3 continents. Emma wasn't just a con artist. She was a talent scout for a massive criminal enterprise that targeted successful small businesses, drained them of assets, then used the stolen funds to purchase gems that were smuggled internationally. I will testify, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. But only with immunity and protection. When I left Ramirez's showroom, my legs were shaking so badly I could barely walk to Diane's car. We got it all, she confirmed, removing my wire. This is bigger than we thought, Alexandra. We need to bring in the FBI. The next 48 hours were a whirlwind. FBI agents took my statement, reviewed the recordings, and arranged for Ramirez to be placed in protective custody. Michael worked with federal prosecutors to expand our case from simple fraud to racketeering and money laundering. But Emma remained elusive. She'd vanished from her Miami hotel the night after meeting with Ramirez, almost as if she'd been tipped off. "Someone's feeding her information," Diane said during our strategy meeting at the FBI field office. "She always stays one step ahead." "What about my court hearing tomorrow?" I asked. "The injunction to freeze her assets?" The FBI agent in charge, Special Agent Rivera, leaned forward. "We think she'll have a representative there, probably her lawyer. She won't risk showing up herself." Script part separator The injunction hearing was set for 9 a.m. in downtown Miami's federal courthouse. I barely slept the night before, running through scenarios in my mind. What if she didn't show? What if the judge didn't believe me? What if all this was for nothing? My hands trembled as I buttoned my navy suit jacket, the last professional outfit I owned that hadn't been packed away or sold. Michael met me at the courthouse steps, his expression serious but confident. "Remember, stay calm no matter what happens," he advised. "Let me do the talking unless the judge addresses you directly." The courtroom was nearly empty when we entered, just a few clerks and a court reporter preparing for the day. Then the doors opened, and I felt the air leave my lungs. Emma walked in. Not a representative. Not a lawyer. Emma herself, dressed impeccably in a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. My money had paid for that suit. Our eyes locked across the room. She smiled, that same confident smile that had once made me trust her completely. Now it made my blood boil. "She's bold, I'll give her that," Michael whispered. "But this is good for us." "Very good." The bailiff called the court to order as Judge Williams entered. I clutched the edge of the table, bracing myself for the confrontation I'd been waiting for. Script part separator The judge began by reviewing the case details, his voice a monotonous drone that barely penetrated my consciousness. All I could focus on was Emma, sitting not 20 feet away, occasionally whispering to her attorney, a sleek, silver-haired man whose custom suit screamed expensive. "Your Honor," Michael began when it was our turn to speak, "this is a clear-cut case of fraud and embezzlement. Ms. Blackwell systematically drained my client's business and personal accounts of over $2.3 million. Emma's lawyer stood immediately. "Your Honor, these are baseless accusations. Ms. Blackwell was a legitimate business partner with proper authorization to make financial decisions. If Ms. Sinclair failed to properly oversee their joint venture, that's hardly my client's fault." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. Michael presented our evidence methodically, bank statements, unauthorized transfers, the loans taken out in the company's name without my knowledge. Then Emma's lawyer dropped the bombshell. "Your Honor, I have here a document signed by Ms. Sinclair granting my client full financial authority with minimal oversight." She willingly ceded control. He held up a paper I'd never seen before. My signature was at the bottom, perfectly forged. "That's not my signature," I blurted out, unable to contain myself any longer. The judge frowned at me. "Ms. Sinclair, please let your counsel speak." Script part separator Michael quickly recovered. "Your Honor, we dispute the authenticity of that document and request it be examined by a handwriting expert. Furthermore, we have evidence that Ms. Blackwell is operating under a false identity as part of a larger criminal enterprise." The judge's eyebrows rose. "That's a serious allegation, Counselor." "We have federal agents prepared to testify," Michael continued. In fact, the courtroom doors opened and Special Agent Rivera walked in with 2 more agents. Emma's composure finally cracked. She whispered frantically to her lawyer, who looked increasingly concerned. "Your Honor," Michael said, his voice steady, "the FBI has opened an investigation into Ms. Blackwell and her associates for racketeering, money laundering, and fraud across multiple states." Emma stood suddenly. "This is ridiculous. She's just trying to cover for her own financial incompetence." The judge banged his gavel. "Ms. Blackwell, sit down." But Emma was already moving toward the exit. The FBI agents blocked her path. "Emma Blackwell, you're under arrest," Agent Rivera announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You have the right to remain silent." As they handcuffed her, Emma locked eyes with me one last time. "This isn't over," She mouthed silently. The courtroom erupted in chaos as Emma was led away. Her lawyer frantically gathered papers, already distancing himself from his client. The judge banged his gavel repeatedly, calling for order. 2 weeks later, I stood on the steps of that same courthouse, surrounded by reporters after the final hearing. The FBI had recovered almost 70% of my money from various accounts. Emma had accepted a plea deal, facing 15 years in federal prison. Her testimony had led to the arrest of 12 others, including Gregory Thompson and 3 international gem dealers. Ms. Sinclair, how does it feel to get justice? A reporter shouted. I looked directly into the camera, knowing Emma might see this from her jail cell. Justice isn't just about punishment. It's about rebuilding what was broken. Sinclair Jewels will reopen next month, stronger than before. That night, as I unlocked the door to my flagship store for the first time in months, I ran my fingers over my father's name on the original sign. We did it, Dad, I whispered. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I tensed, then relaxed when I read the message. Witness protection has a new identity ready for Ramirez. Your testimony made the difference. Rivera. Some betrayals leave permanent scars, but they also reveal what we're truly made of. In my case, pure diamond.